Hello, friends. It so happens that when we hear Playboy or see the famous rabbit emblem on numerous accessories and other items, images of the good life instantly flash before our eyes. Long-legged, buxom beauties in bikinis, crystal champagne costing $400 a bottle, limousines cleaned and polished to a mirror shine, and beautiful mansions in Miami with huge pools and a fun crowd. After all, not all runway models stir men around the world the way the Playboy girls do. Few people know that the first issue of the legendary men's magazine was published 68 years ago back then. The cover of the December 1953 issue was graced by the best of the best, the incomparable Marilyn Monroe. Much has changed since then, but despite it all, since its first issue, Playboy has spread worldwide, earning a reputation as the magazine all others measure themselves against. The main character of this video, Hugh Hefner, is rightly considered a pioneer of the sexual revolution. Women adore him, and it's not at all about his multi-million-dollar fortune and the empire he built. To this day, the standards of female beauty, as perceived by the magazine's leadership, have undergone significant changes. But at the same time, it was Playboy that changed those very standards all over the world. But since our focus here is strictly on business, this video will only be about the business and success of an ordinary man, no matter what brand he represents. The founder of the famous glossy magazine is American Hugh Marston Hefner. A long time ago, on April 9, 1926, a boy named Hugh was born into the Hefner family in the city of Chicago. The atmosphere in the family was very conservative. The boy's parents, Glenn Lucius and Grace Caroline, were quite strict people. They forbade going to movie theaters and other entertainment venues. The Hefner family's only entertainment was regular visits to the local church on weekends. It was probably this very upbringing that sowed the seeds of rebellion in the soul of the intelligent and sociable boy. From his school days, young Hugh was drawn to the arts. He was restless in class and had no interest in what was taught within the school walls. But he loved writing articles, dreamed of working as a journalist, participated in publishing the school newspaper, and had a special talent for creating caricatures and satirical drawings. But despite all this, no one back then could have imagined that just a few years later, Hef, as Hugh was nicknamed, would become known to the whole world. Even as a young man, Hefner stood out from his peers with his handsome appearance and slender figure. The guy, of course, enjoyed considerable attention from the opposite sex. But besides girls, he was interested in cars and sports, and he secretly dreamed of a different, luxurious life. But back then, he could only dream about it, and reality was different. After finishing school, the young man joined the army, even fought in World War I, simultaneously working as a writer for a small military newspaper. After returning from service, he decided to get his life in order and enrolled in the psychology program at the University of Illinois. It's worth noting that university studies left their mark on the now adult young man. Despite his army service and the war, he remained as vulnerable and emotional as before. At university, he studied the intricacies of the human soul and behavior, and in his talented mind, dreams of creating his own magazine were already beginning to form. The main thing he needed to think about was the idea he wanted to bring to society. But, of course, he needed a certain amount of cash to make his dream come true. And to get closer to the publishing world, Hefner even got a job as an editor at the magazine Shaft, where he worked not on articles, but on funny cartoons. What happened next? While still very young at 23, the temperamental Hugh married a beauty and, incidentally, his former classmate named Mildred, who soon gave him two children, a daughter, Christy, and a son, David. At that time, everything in his life was well ordered. A home, family, job, friends, and stability. And perhaps thoughts of the legendary publishing venture would never have become reality if not for, let's say, favorable life circumstances. By that time, Hugh had already worked for several publishers, ending up in the advertising department of Esquire magazine. But, unquestionably, even despite working for a prestigious publisher, the money wasn't enough to support a family with two small children. They all lived in a small rented apartment, living from paycheck to paycheck. Therefore, realizing that the amount of work he was doing didn't correspond to his income, Hef went to his bosses with a simple request for a raise. But there, true to form, he was met with a refusal. So, the angry young man immediately submitted his resignation, firmly resolved never to work for someone else again and to launch his own brainchild, which would be talked about by more than one generation of men. By this time, he he was already quite knowledgeable about glossy journalism, sufficiently ambitious, and prepared to sail on his own. But again, everything came down to that damned money. Driven by the desire to quickly find funds for survival, he even regretted his hasty decision to quit his job and began looking for a new one. And it was precisely at that moment, while he was going for interviews, that something happened that fundamentally changed his entire life, and indeed the lives of millions of people around the world. The thing is, while waiting for his interview, he spotted a postcard of a semi-nude Marilyn Monroe lying on the publisher's desk. It was at that moment that a brilliant idea struck him. That's it, I've decided to create my own magazine, aimed at adult, established men, with interesting articles and a slightly playful subtext. That evening, the young man returned home and couldn't get the idea out of his head. He, of course, said nothing to his wife, as he didn't know how she would react. Waking up in the morning, he knew he was ready to act, and the first thing he needed was to find investors. From his own savings, Hefner could only allocate $600. Another $1,000 from her savings was given by his 58-year-old mother, Caroline Hefner. Also, $8,000 was invested by local investors. Simply put, use acquaintances who found the idea quite tempting. When the money issue was resolved, the man faced a new task: the name. After all, whatever you name your ship, that's how it will sail. It had to be simple, yet attractive and alluring. The first idea was to call the new publication Stag Party, with a stag in a smoking jacket as its logo. Options like top hat, gentleman, sir, satyr, panel, and goblet were also considered. But the owner of another men's magazine, Stag meaning male deer, threatened to sue Hefner if he settled on the name Stag Party. When a friend of Hefner's, whose mother worked for an automotive company called Playboy Automotive, suggested the name Playboy, Hugh thought it was a great idea. It sounds beautiful and clear, the guy thought, and decided to go with that name. At the same time, artist Arthur Paul, Playboy's art director, quickly redrew the stag into the head of a rabbit with a bow tie. Moreover, the black, long-eared cutie with a body, like no other, announced the passionate animal instincts born in a man's head at the sight of a sexy and beautiful woman. By the way, Playboy has several interpretations. Play means to play, and boy is, well, boy. And so it happened that a few years later, Playboys would come to mean young, sexy guys with a fondness for a large number of beautiful women. As for everyday and production matters, Hefner had no separate office space. The issue's layout was composed, drawn, corrected, and pasted together in the kitchen of his own apartment. By that time, his wife had learned about her husband's rather controversial venture and even supported him in all his endeavors. As for printing and distribution, Hugh decided to turn to already established publishing houses and, having paid for the printing of his first issue and its distribution to newsstands, got down to business. So, thinking about how to attract potential readers, Hefner remembered how soldiers in the army would pin up photos of movie star girls above their beds. That's how the idea was born to place a pin-up beauty in the magazine's centerfold, which could later be admired on the wall. Many young guys did just that afterwards. Even more, it's still popular today, Hefner recalled. He remembered an old acquaintance, John Baumgartner, the owner of a Chicago company that produced calendars with beauties, whom he had crossed paths with several times through work. And for $50, Hefner acquired from him a photograph of a young, not particularly well-known actress named Jean Mortensen, who later took the pseudonym Marilyn Monroe for shooting. So, all that was left was to place the photo on the cover of the first issue of Playboy and publish Ray Bradbury's story Fahrenheit 451 on the remaining pages. What was the result? The result was something Hefner himself couldn't have imagined. The sales success exceeded all expectations, and the issue with Marilyn Monroe, released in December 1953 at a price of 50 cents, sold 52,000 copies. It had to be urgently reprinted because demand was crazy. This allowed the author not only to pay for the printing of the second issue, but also to contemplate the success of his new brainchild. It was this successful start that launched the birth of Hefner's entertainment empire, an empire called Playboy. Well, after that, as they say, it was off to the races. First came the painful struggle to introduce a magazine of explicit content into the culture of the 1950s, a fight for freedom of speech, for the right to exist. Then came work with banned writers, the famous liberation of prisoners suffering from repressive sexual legislation, confrontations with the FBI, and even the church. I never considered Playboy to be a sex magazine. For me, it was always a publication about a lifestyle, of which sex is just one component. Playboy is more about wealth and luxury, about bright parties and fun. Playboy is, in a way, a call to be free and to pay attention to others. The famous publisher once noted in an interview. And, given that the glossy pages featured interesting interviews and published stars like Nabokov, Hemingway, Arthur Miller, and Jean-Paul Sartre, this is the pure truth. According to the magazine's founder, the depiction of nude girls in erotic poses was merely a lure for a large readership. The idea was that further into the magazine's pages, there would be reflections on global life problems, interviews with celebrities, and so on. But it turned out that the photos of semi-nude divas gained significantly greater popularity among the male population. The first model to lead the charge was Margie Harrison. The girl, who was involved in distributing the magazine, became Miss January of the distant year 1954. She graced the second issue of the publication and became the first beauty to earn the title of Playboy's Playmate of the Month. And already in 1955, Hefner introduced the Playmate of the Month feature, which later became a permanent section and began publishing photos not of movie stars, but of ordinary, girl-next-door types. This was truly revolutionary for its time. It turned out that beauties lived not only in Hollywood, they were right here, next to us, alive and real. It was Hefner who first began recruiting for photo shoots not only professional models and recognized beauties but also ordinary, pretty girls who previously had no grand titles or experience shooting for such publications. He gave every girl a chance to be on the magazine's cover, and this played a huge role in shaping its image. Applicants for photo shoots lined up in queues. Initially, the status of Playmate of the Month did not involve an official cash prize, and the criteria for receiving this title were quite vague. The February girl of 1954, Marilyn Waltz, simply basked in the love of fans and was drowning in sacks of mail, like none of her colleagues could ever dream of. But, despite this, she never received the coveted status. After Marilyn Waltz's success, several of her colleagues also basked in the spotlight and received titles of the most popular and hottest items. But the first model to officially win this hot competition and receive the status of Playboy's Playmate of the Year was Ellen Stratton. This memorable event happened way back in 1960, and she started this glorious tradition. The famous 1972 cover became one of the most famous covers in the world. It featured a photo of Swedish model Lena Sturberg, which later became widely used in scientific papers to test and illustrate image processing algorithms. Also, this digitized photo model was the first to be transmitted digitally over the ARPANET network, the prototype of the modern internet in color. Building his empire, Hefner began hosting the famous Playboy parties, which completed the formation of his image. These events always featured crowds of semi-dressed girls, expensive alcohol, luxurious cars, and unbridled fun. And all the girls who appeared in the magazine were affectionately called playmates. And although Hefner loved parties, at the same time he admitted that this image was necessary to promote his brainchild, and the brainchild grew by leaps and bounds. By the early 1970s, the company's annual net profit reached $11 million, equivalent to about $100 million today, and the circulation exceeded 7 million copies. And in 1972, the first foreign-language Playboy saw the light. First came the German edition, followed a bit later by French, Brazilian, Italian, Japanese, and so on. In a very short time, Playboy mania swept the world, and the magazine quickly solidified its status as iconic. It's worth noting that Hugh Hefner knew how to enjoy life. He not only founded the most popular men's magazine and organized the hottest harem the world had ever seen. We're talking about Mr. Hefner's mansion located in Los Angeles, California. This majestic building in the Beverly Hills area gathered under its roof as many celebrities as other clubs and restaurants never saw. A bit later, Playboy began to include not only print publications but also a modeling agency, a limousine rental service, a television company, casinos, as well as resort and hotel businesses. All this brought the creator and owner billions of dollars. To advertise his establishments, he even launched a TV show, Playboy and Penthouse, or the Playboy Mansion, which showed the whole world how the already aging Hefner and numerous girls could coexist together in the famous Playboy Mansion. Needless to say, the scandalous show was a resounding success. But in the early 80s, the Playboy empire, due to problems with the gambling business, lost almost 45% of its income, amounting to $363 million. Moreover, Playboy began to be attacked in the press by women's rights groups, The magazine's circulation in the US fell to 4 million by 1985, and soon a commission created by US President Ronald Reagan ordered that a number of publications be sold only from specialized counters. The magazine ceased to be distributed in thousands of retail outlets. But that wasn't all. Because of his image, Hugh also paid with his family happiness. It was during these years that his first wife left. He didn't remain alone for long, however. Soon he met another important woman in his life, Barbie Benton, with whom he dated for almost 10 years, from 1968 to 1976, but never married. During their acquaintance, the 18-year-old brunette shyly said, "I've never dated anyone older than 24. That's okay, neither have I," replied the 42-year-old editor-in-chief of Playboy. Deceiving his women was never in Hefner's custom, but once he'd slipped up. In the spring of 1971, in the third year of his relationship with Barbie Benton, who lived in his Los Angeles mansion, another love suddenly appeared in Hefner's life, the luxurious blonde Karen Christie, who settled in his Chicago apartment. The smitten Hefner spent several years flying on his private plane between the two cities, carefully hiding from each girl the very fact of the other's existence. But, as they say, everything secret eventually becomes clear. It all ended in a scandal in the spring of 1974 when Time magazine published an expose. Hefner was left by both girls at once. However, Barbie later returned, but their relationship was hopelessly spoiled. Despite such a turbulent lifestyle, Hugh made several more attempts to marry. In 1989, his partner became Kimberly Conrad, one of the few girls who managed to become Hefner's wife. They tied the knot in 1989, and a year later, exactly on Playboy's birthday, Kimberly gave him a son. In 1991, thanks to her, life in the mansion became less wild, and the number of models living there noticeably decreased. They separated in 1999, but only officially divorced in 2009, 20 years after the wedding. Conrad used her popularity and became an active animal rights activist. From 2000, Hefner lived in his Playboy mansion in Los Angeles with 7 girls aged 18 to 28. If Hefner was asked whom he always most enjoyed welcoming to his Los Angeles mansion, he would answer without hesitation, Pamela Anderson. In 2010, he proposed again, this time to Crystal Harris. They married in 2012. They had been in a relationship for 3 years prior. At the wedding, she said she dreamed of staying with her husband until the end of his life. And that's essentially what happened. Besides his love, the millionaire left his widow not too much. The house and jointly acquired property, all this was stipulated in the prenuptial agreement. But Hugh did not forget his previous wives. There was enough money for absolutely everyone. Thus, the will states that part of Hefner's inheritance will go to several charitable foundations, and some money also went to the University of Southern California. Today, the promotion of the empire is handled by his daughter from his first marriage. Hugh Hefner himself passed away on September 27, 2017, at the age of 91. By the way, for those who don't know, Hugh Hefner even has 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The first star, dedicated to Hefner, was unveiled in 1980 for his great contribution to American television, and Hefner received his second star in 2006, placed by moguls Johnny Brendan and Jack Daniels at the Palms Hotel. Over the entire history of the magazine's existence, that's nearly 70 years, for a second, hundreds of girls have been on its cover. These are popular actresses, including Sharon Stone, Angelina Jolie, Demi Moore, and Nicole Kidman. There were also singers and ordinary models. Pamela Anderson graced the magazine's cover in 1989 before all her plastic surgeries. After that, she posed for Playboy many more times to gain popularity, and she certainly succeeded. She starred on the Playboy TV channel, which led to rather ambiguous rumors about her. Despite all this, even at 54, the actress remains one of the most attractive models to have appeared on the magazine's cover. American photo model Cindy Crawford became the first supermodel to pose nude for Playboy magazine. According to this magazine's version, she entered the top 100 sexiest stars of the 20th century. The next famous cover was the one with model Kate Moss, who posed in 2014 for the British version of the magazine. She also received the title of one of the sexiest women in the world, and this despite being only 5 feet for 164 centimeters tall. One of the few domestic stars who posed for one of the magazine's versions was Daria Astafeva in 2009. Astafeva moved to the USA and lived on Hugh Hefner's estate, then she posed, not afraid to show all her charms. By the way, she even spoke several times about her friendship with Hefner, demonstrating tender feelings for him. But of course, Angelina Jolie, a beauty and mother of many children, is a favorite of Playboy magazine. She appeared in it 3 times, featuring in the American version of the publication. Interestingly, the celebrity who stole Brad Pitt from her star colleague Jennifer Aniston likes to pose for other magazines that publish revealing photos as well. Today, Playboy is one of the most recognizable brands in the world. The magazine has regional editions in more than 30 countries. Hundreds of famous actresses and prominent sportswomen have appeared on its pages, and Hefner managed to turn his logo not just into a glossy magazine, but into a whole industry. The head of that very bunny with a bald eye can now be seen on glasses, clothing, headwear, perfumes, and much, much more. Naturally, the company makes huge profits from all this. As for Hefner himself, many say this about him: he was a desperate workaholic who built the entire empire with his own hands. Even at 91, he worked tirelessly, and everything concerning the bright image of a bachelor and risk parties. He was simply a hostage to his image, even though he didn't have that much in common with it. So, that's the success story of the Playboy brand. A story that is already 70 years old and that began in the kitchen of a small apartment, with a budget of just $9,600. Someone might have bought a nice car with that, but someone else managed to build a multi-billion-dollar business from it. Friends, write your opinion about what you've heard. Well, that's all for today. Rate the video if you liked it, and see you soon. Bye.